Coldplay and BTS on Magic in the Morning. It is your Tuesday. Hard to believe that fair season's getting kicked off. We're going to leave that alone. We want to slow the calendar down a bit. Our friend Mike Barrett in for a weekly edition with a Magic Morning crew of good policies. Mike's got his coffee. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, fair season is on the horizon. We'll leave it at that, right? We see it. Just don't happen yet. Not ready.
Do you have any idea how close that horizon is?
Danville's pretty quick.
Well, how about tomorrow?
What?
North Haverhill Fair.
North Haverhill's tomorrow?
Yeah.
Man, my head's been in a hole. I didn't know that.
Well, not like you haven't been busy with Barrett Insurance and Northeast Kingdom Cancer Action Network, being a dad, dealing with the roads. Hey, let's stop this chat. Let's go.
Sure.
Let's go back to last week. Obviously, people are still reeling and recovering from this catastrophic weather event that happened a week ago in 2 days.
Yeah.
And people out there are really needing help. And insurance companies are doing the best they can. Let's do a flood in your insurance part 2.
I think that's a great idea. And real quick, I will tell you, Locally Social Gives is a 501c3 nonprofit in St. Johnsbury. It's the folks that own Locally Social Coffee. They have a great fundraiser that they're doing now. They're offering grants to people that need flood recovery assistance. So that's a good one I'll throw out there real quick. And there's a lot of those out there. A lot of them. So help out if you can.
They certainly are. I was reading yesterday that they're giving out, as long as the funding is there, up to $1,500 on a first-come, first-served basis. Now, folks, if you're looking for the website itself, that link is shared to the Magic Facebook page, but I love the name of the website.
Yeah.
It feels good to do good.org.
Yeah, Carrie loves that statement. She has all kinds of outerwear that reflects that vibe, and it's just a positive thing. So it's awesome. But when it comes to flood, Jeff, I continue to hear folks reeling from the devastation, the damage. Remember, there's both a physical and a mental toll that comes with this, and so I really hope people are taking the time to breathe because there's a lot to it, and I get it. But the crux of the matter is that the coverage for flood, specifically, other than a vehicle, other than automobile, motorcycle, things of that nature, where you have coverage on it with what we call comprehensive. Quite often, comprehensive is going to be covering flood for vehicles. We're staying on the property side this morning. So on the property side, I continue to hear people saying, I'm not in the floodplain, I wasn't eligible, I couldn't do this, I couldn't do that. You could. You absolutely could. I don't care if you are on the lowest point of your town or the highest point of your town. You can buy flood insurance. Whether it makes sense or not is up to you. But again, insurance is about finding your level of comfort, providing you a sense of relief for knowing that you are covered for the unexpected. So in Lindenville, for an example, there's a couple of businesses that didn't think that they were eligible for flood because they're not in the higher risk flood zone. Here's the deal. If you are in Lindenville, anywhere, you are eligible for the FEMA program, which is the National Flood Insurance Program, administered either through the National Flood Insurance Program directly, which we represent, or we can do what we call write your own carriers with other companies like the Hartford and Concord Group and Foremost, all with FEMA, all on National Flood Insurance Program paper. But if you are in a participating FEMA town, and it's easy to find out, just call an agent, we'll tell you, you could get a quote for flood insurance.
Well, let's talk about those because you kind of dabbled going into that there. Those are at higher elevations. Now, for example, myself, I'm at about 1,300 feet elevation with no major rivers or water sources around me.
Right.
But I woke up last week, Thursday morning, to no driveway with a 6-foot canyon, 10 inches of water up my car. Unfortunately, I rent, but my landlord, do they or don't they?
They wouldn't. I can't answer the question of whether they have flood insurance, but if they didn't have flood insurance, they wouldn't. But they would be eligible to purchase it if it's not a FEMA town, you can probably get it through a private flood opportunity, which we represent them as well. But flood insurance is available to business owners, homeowners, and renters. So if you are renting a place and is subject to the possibility of flood, now remember, everyone always goes, my house will never flood. And I will now forevermore say, will your house catch fire? You don't want it to catch fire either, right? But you're insured for that. So, think about it. And you mentioned the best example, Jeff, right? So you said you're high up, you're 1,200 feet. There's no really well-known water source readily available, or so many people think of ponds, streams, brooks, lakes, rivers, bodies of water that can overflow their banks is certainly a heavy reason for causing flood. But inundation of water can happen anywhere. And when you're getting 6 inches of rain in a very short amount of time, inundation of water is like a lottery. You may get it, you may not. But if you don't have flood insurance, you don't have coverage. So it's a good idea just to do your due diligence and see if it's something that makes sense. We've quoted a lot of flood policies over the past couple of weeks, Jeff.
Well, I also, too, and maybe they were listening to our previous conversation with Flood and Your Insurance Part 1 last week. Anybody that does apply and agree to purchase flood coverage, there is a 30-day grace period before it goes into effect.
Yes, there is a 30-day grace period, and that's because you can't buy coverage as a storm is approaching, right? And it makes sense. Now, there are some exceptions to that rule, and this is the exception that we see more often. That's for a loan closing, or what we call a loan rollover, right? So if you have a mortgagee that requires you to have flood insurance, and I hate to say this, but that's 90% of why people have flood insurance is because a mortgagee told them to, and they pay it under protest, and they're very unhappy about it. But it's there for a reason. So if you are closing to purchase a property that's in a flood zone, or you have had flood coverage and you're switching carriers, highly likely that they would waive the waiting period. But for all other purposes, it will be a 30-day waiting period.
Okay, so would they waive that most likely if you already had that?
Yeah, if you already had flood insurance with a different type of a situation, you may be able to be eligible for what we call a loan rollover. More of the private carriers, the last time I was in Washington, D.C., and we were on Capitol Hill, one of the big problems that we have in our industry is that the National Flood Insurance Program is not currently recognizing private flood insurance as being eligible to waive that 30-day wait. We're working to try to correct that. We still have a ways to go because the National Flood Insurance Program has many improvements that can be made, and I'm hoping the next time I go to D.C., which will be next April, we'll be able to make some more further ground on that.
Well, even if they don't remove the 30-day wait, maybe they'll shorten it. But we got a lot in our time this morning, and I'm sure there are folks out there that now have some questions.
Yeah, you can give us a call. We're happy to talk about whether you're eligible for flood, whether it makes sense for you. We're happy to quote it, at least give you an idea of where you could go. 748-5224 is our number. We're on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury, online, thebarrettagency.com, Google, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Just look for Barrett Insurance Agency.